Play me a song.
Strum it for us. Nothing like the sound of flicked strings. Am I right?
Welcome back to the Corridor Digital Podcast, everybody. We're glad you're here. I hope you're having a great day. And wow, guys, what's going on over there in the studio? I mean,
sorry,
we have a sound
Jake,
leak.
You came on so hard, my Bluetooth headphones disconnected.
Oh man!
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Tooth.
Niko's been disconnected. He'll be back soon. But also alongside Niko, we have Jordan Allen
Howdy.
and Nick Laurent. Everybody,
Hey.
how you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, doing real well. Vibes are high.
Vibes are high.
Good. Vibes are high, like you guys have been smoking the reefer, or they're high like spirits are high.
Spirits are high.
Yeah, spirits are very high.
Yeah, dude.
Mm.
I think in general, just there's a lot going on. Working on some fun projects.
Mhm.
Got Batgirl.
Oh my gosh.
Do you feel the like relief of having Son of a Dungeon now nearly completed and Punch for Punch as well being done?
Yes.
I feel that. I feel that.
Absolutely. Because Son of a Dungeon is such a humongous undertaking for everybody, really. And it's a multi-month. Yeah. As I look directly at the one person, it's not for everyone.
The one guy who doesn't touch the show.
Yeah, it's just a huge undertaking. And like now that we're in the visual effects side of things, Nuke certainly helped us expedite a lot of the process, which is great. But still, it's a slog because we're talking there's 9-hour episodes.
Yeah.
Dude.
And we still have to do effects
Yeah.
for 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah. And you're talking
Totally
like,
right now. We don't even have drafts for VFX for after episode 6 yet.
Legit. Yeah. And you're talking about like 50 shots, roughly 30 to 50 VFX shots per episode. And they're all, 10 seconds or more of green screen photography and CG elements and effect. Like it stacks up. But yeah, we're moving quick. We're moving quick.
Yeah. No, you guys are moving
Guys,
quick.
I hate to say,
And
my headphone batteries are dead.
Oh no.
oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Niko's
Well,
headphones
Niko,
are
why don't
We
you
can
run
talk
and go
about
get a
Niko
different pair of bone phones, and then
Go buy some new bones, Nico.
and once you're in the
Why are
podcast, I'm
these just
sure there's
die right away?
something.
You got
Technical
old phone
difficulties.
bones.
Yeah, man. So we put together a little effects team. Of course, Jordan, in addition to you, Fenner, and then also this girl Caitlin and this guy
Yep.
Martin out of Canada. They've been awesome, and you guys have been doing everything in Nuke,
Yeah.
which is new for you.
It is. It's brand new. And this has really been awesome because it's essentially like a training ground, right? I have this theory that anytime you jump into a new software, as much as you can watch tutorials and enjoy that, you will never get significantly better without reps. You need reps. And this has been cool because it's been an astronomical amount of reps. It's like, I want to start working on biceps, and you just do curls every day, all day for months. Like you're going to get pretty
just
jacked
show up
biceps.
And you just have the
Yeah.
biceps that
We've
do
all seen
that.
that photo of the guy with like the huge
oil
butt.
arms? Yeah.
Dude. Ooh.
You're
And,
like, look, I don't know how to do anything except for this one comp, but man, am I good at that one comp.
Yeah, dude. And having Fenner there obviously is insanely helpful because he's expediting my learning process dramatically, right? There's all these little tricks that he does that I've never thought of doing, and they're all genius. So you stick them all together and you can get something really, really good looking really quick. And so that's cool because that now applies to other comp work that I do here. Like,
It's
the
the
trailer
discipline.
work that we do, the rated R work that we do, the render challenges that we do. So it's been great for me personally.
I was telling a guy this at the gas station. It's the discipline. This guy, I was at the gas station,
Is this
just
true?
like,
You just had a
Yeah.
BFX conversation, workflow
dude,
conversation.
I have conversations at the gas station
Yeah.
now. Anyway, I was there. This guy was, he's the only one working. He's working on the refrigerator. Like he's in the back futzing around with it, trying to fix it or whatever. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, oh, just some manual labor. And I was like, there's plenty of that to go around. And then then we started talking about work. And then he was like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna. I told my wife as soon as we move into the new house, every day that I'm off, I'm gonna be back in the back house just streaming because I'm gonna get my Twitch game going. And I was like, dude, you should.
Yeah.
But you know what the difference? The thing that separates the men from the boys, it's the discipline. And he was like, oh, all right, all right, I got you.
Bet.
And then we parted ways.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That-
just
that- that's some good
injected
advice.
that discipline right into him.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well, it's the enthusiasm only gets you so far, right? Like
very,
you
very
can,
true.
you can
That
go
wears
into
off
a new
fast.
idea.
It's
yeah.
so true.
Yeah.
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 And it's when you hit that grind zone, right? There's like a point in, at least in my experience in every software that especially Houdini, that I've tried to tackle, where your desire to do it just wanes completely. Like you feel
Yeah.
helpless and useless. And you, at a certain point, yeah, to your point, you have to switch the knob from, encouraged and eager to do it to just, I'm going to do it no matter what. Even if I don't feel like it, I'm going to put at least 5 minutes in and try to get a rhythm. And you do that
Mhm.
until it breaks again. And you will have a break again. It will happen. It always happens. But yeah, that you're totally right. That's what separates, the experts from the people who just get their feet wet and then go back inside.
I mean,
dry
that's
off
what
their
I've been
little toes.
doing with the with the website and the platform in general. I mean, I know I'm not the one that's actually doing the coding and the developing, but it's also been, for me, it's been just, okay, we had this idea 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we had this idea. What if we made our own platform? And it's just been a little bit of that every day, and there's the days you don't want to, but then the days that you do something new and you get like the new tool and then you have all these parts come together, and oh man, those are the days that I'm living for sure.
What's your
'Cause-
exposure to that side of it? Because I don't know too much about like the back end of the website.
Quite a bit. I mean, Scott and I catch up at least once a week, sometimes twice. And it's just been a process of, I mean, his team has grown so much, but I remember when it was just him and me, and we're sitting there staring at Figma wireframes, just going, okay, homepage,
Yeah.
homepage. Okay. And then, same thing with app, same thing with iOS, same thing with Android, like, and just doing that. And then eventually, we were able to bring on some other people, get some other people's input, get people that are more talented than us, and just slowly. And now we're so close to these new features that I've been so excited to introduce that I'm like, it's like a couple more days, but it's like, it was a couple more days, a couple of days ago,
Yeah.
and so I'm right at the threshold of that, the satisfaction of having that complete, but not there yet. So
Yeah.
another few days. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. One chop at a time.
Yeah.
That's the way to do
Exactly.
it. I think it was, I might be botching this, but I think it was Kobe Bryant who said, he was in an interview, and he said something about, normally people wake up at this hour and they go to the gym at this hour and they put in this many hours a day into basketball. And he's like, but I aim to wake up earlier. I think it was like 2 hours earlier or something. And he's like, every day that I'm doing that, I'm 2 hours better off than my opponent. And he says, after years and years and years, you're talking about thousands and thousands of hours built in that the opponents don't have.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just put in a little bit a day and it adds up so quick. That's the difference.
Same thing. Yeah.
That's
It's like
the
reading,
difference. Yeah, reading.
You just gotta.
You read?
No, see, most people
Words.
hate reading. Most people don't
Yeah.
like reading, but I just make sure I get in those reps every week, man.
yeah, dude.
It's
But
like,
you're reading history. You're reading
Yeah,
some really
mostly.
interesting stuff, because I just started Dan Carlin's Hardcore History.
Welcome to
yes.
history.
Yes.
buddy.
King of Kings
dude,
series.
Yeah.
I wish I could be in your shoes right now
Oh,
and just experience
get
it for
into
the
King of
first
Kings.
time.
You couldn't get into King. Oh,
No,
but
I just kind of waffled around for like 5 hours.
this is what I told Nick. This is what I told
They're all,
Nick.
all this other stuff's
dare you,
amazing.
Nico? How
What,
dare
there's
you?
one about Xerxes, King of Kings?
Yes, King. The
Yeah, it
Xerxes
didn't
one.
go anywhere for like too long.
Because I told Nick this is my first exposure to this series.
Yeah, don't do
And
don't start
I
King of
told
Kings.
Nick, I was like, I like, it's exciting information, but I don't see the through line. Like there's so much.
In my
Now,
opinion-
episode
Okay.
2.
It's just called
King-
like the whole history of the
King of
Achaemenid
Kings
Empire. Like,
is the worst
that's the through line.
Dan Carlin
It-
podcast I've listened to of his.
Well, that's exciting because I am quite enjoying it. It is a bit, all over the place, and I'm in and out.
I think it's just because we have no context of Eastern history, and
Look,
we're totally
Start
Western
with World War
centric.
One.
start with World War
Start
One.
with World War One. Listen to his
that
World War
one
One
is
podcast.
is far and away the best free one.
Yes.
It's a great one to start with. Also the Celtic Holocaust.
Celtic
in the
Holocaust
Roman
is
era
amazing.
is a
maybe I'll
great
just
one.
switch.
Yeah, you
Should I-
switch.
is that okay?
Yeah, that's what I did.
but
I switched
if
King
you-
of
if you-
Kings. It's like this isn't going anywhere.
Really? Okay.
If you
I mean,
start
it's hours
with
of your life, so
yeah.
if you start with the Celtic Holocaust and then buy the fall of the Roman Republic, that one ties it all together, and you understand. Now you understand like Caesar's purpose in history.
Interesting.
I would wager
and
switch them around though.
Oh, you think switch them around?
Well, then you have it in order, you know?
Oh, switch them around.
Yeah, you have it in
mind.
order. It's a good primer, though. I listened to it before I did the Roman Republic because I knew what it was leading to, and that made me more interested.
Yeah, I guess you could start with the Holocaust one.
Either one.
Yeah, I guess they do kind of like overlap a lot. So yeah.
The battle.
Disregard that.
Holocaust
Disregard it.
So sick, by the way.
The what?
The final battle of Celtic Holocaust.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
it's like
cool.
an episode of Game of Thrones.
Oh, dude.
The
It
final
is,
battle, man.
It's straight up like,
Dude,
but it was
real.
It's like 10,000 soldiers fighting like, I don't know, however many, like 100,000 Celts.
One of my life goals is to commit that battle to film someday.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, that's
a
one
good
thing that
life
Dan was
goal.
saying
I
about
admire that.
And we're getting closer every day.
Yeah.
Having
You're so
the
right.
technology to do that like
You're
in our
so
studio.
right.
Is that a
Yeah.
segue?
Oh.
Or did you just segue?
I think that is a segue.
Yeah, my goal is just
That's
to type that as a prompt.
Natural segue, Niko.
All right, so hey, this is probably what the podcast is actually going to be about here in the title. So hey, guess what? You made it to that part of the podcast. So we
history
got
part.
Stable Diffusion up and running in the studio. You're like, what? Stable what? What are you talking about?
That was
So-
me. That was me like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
me too.
Going,
So
what are you
remember,
talking
like,
about?
Remember like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, when we're like, Dolly 2 is amazing and it totally changes the game. And can you guys imagine what it's going to be like in a couple of years when people can just run prompts uncensored, whatever they want? They can just generate any
Yeah.
image they want. And the cat's out of the bag. Because Dolly 2 is very locked down. No politics, no violence, no nudity, no nothing, right?
Yeah. None of the good stuff.
So a solid like 3 weeks passed, and here we are. We've achieved that other
Yeah.
extent now. There's an AI that, in my opinion, makes better images than Dolly 2.
Wow.
Completely open source. You can download and run on any computer, assuming you have the hardware capable of it. And it's also uncensored. So you can just make whatever you want.
Oh God.
And so that Brave New World that we were like talking about, turns out we're already there, and it's a little frightening how fast we went from Dolly 2 to Dolly 2 being old news.
Honestly, you and I, Niko and I were having a conversation earlier today, and I was talking about nerfs and nerf technology, and Ren's been diving into that stuff and how fast that has gone from just being on your computer via like Python only to within a couple weeks.
Can you explain that quick for people who think you're talking about Nerf guns?
Oh, yeah, fair. So, yeah, Nerfs, I don't know too much about them.
Neural something
Oh,
radius.
sorry, you guys don't know yet? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, come on, guys, it's been 3 weeks. Neural radiance fields, I could be wrong about a lot of what I'm about to say, but I'm pretty sure this is how it works. It's essentially like a photo scan, but it doesn't bake in the light data. And it's not actually creating an object as we traditionally understand them in 3D. It's creating like a fog volume almost.
It's perspectives, really.
It's perspectives, yeah. So
you show a
nothing
computer 10
concrete.
perspectives of something and go, all right, redraw it, but redraw a perspective between this one and this one. The
Yeah,
computer's
'cause it's
I think
like-
it looks like this.
It's like live iterations from AI of like understanding what the object was based on your collection of images. So
it's almost like perspective deepfakes.
yeah, totally. Perspective deepfakes. And it doesn't bake in the lighting, which is of course the biggest issue with, photo scans is like the baked in lighting and the reflection issues and stuff
Yeah, you
like
can't
that.
photo scan
Yeah.
glass, you can't photo scan mirrors, you can't photo scan reflective chrome balls or anything like that.
But yeah, if you look up nerfs, NERF, it'll blow your mind. It absolutely blew my mind. And the fact that they were, he was on the computer doing some really cool stuff. He showed up the week or two after with it on his phone. And he's like, oh yeah, this just came out. And like the speed that this AI stuff is moving blows my mind. Because when I just wrap my head around what it is, it's already like 3 generations deeper
Yeah.
in terms of what it can do. So like stable
Stable diffusion. I call it
Stable
stable diff
diffusion.
to be cool.
stay
All right.
diff.
So just a little background on the
Step
name. So Stability AI is kind of the company that led the charge here on this release of this image generator. So it's based on something called latent diffusion. So imagine, when you're training machine learning, when you're training AI. Oh.
There you go. Yeah. Cool. Throwback.
That's a sick Celtic Holocaust reference, bro.
Thanks, man. You just had like
Can't
one.
wait
You
to-
had one hair like on your beard, like going down. Like, sorry.
All right. So when you're training, we use the AI very loosely. The specific stuff we're talking about here is machine learning, because AI can be anything really. Machine learning is special in that you're going to give the computer something, like a piece of data. It's going to run it through a black box of just basically a random web of connections that just change that number to a different number based on which neurons, which connections it goes through. It's going to spit it out. That's all that's really happening under the hood. It's like a statistical model, right? And the thing is, you want it to alter those numbers in a certain way. And you're not going to go in and affect what's in that black box. You're just going to tell that computer to, like, you're going to say, hey, here's my ideal solution. Like, here's the answer to the question. What's your answer to the question? And then if it does a good job, you're like, good job, black box. Keep being more like that. Or if it does a bad job, you're like, bad job, black box. You need to change what's going on inside of there. And so, in other words, the computer just constantly rolls the dice until it gets better at figuring something out. Kind of like actual real life evolution. Also kind of like how our brains work in a certain way.
Crazy.
So as long as you have what they call the ground truth, like your answer, so to speak, the computer can compare what it spat out to what it should have given you. And it can make a judgment call. Am I doing a good job? Should I keep improving in that direction? Or am I doing a bad job? Do I need to basically pair those parts off? You know, it's natural selection. The stuff that survives longer gets to reproduce more. The stuff that survives less or whatever doesn't get to reproduce as much. And so it gets pared down. So there's all these different ways you can have computers figure things out. You know, you can do recognizing handwriting. You can do recognizing speech, things like that. And in this case, they went, all right, let's take an image. Let's put some noise on the image and let's have the computer denoise the image. Let's just take the image, grab literally just pure mathematical random noise like you get on your TV, if you have an old TV, and just, you know, literally opacity 10%, stick it on top. And there's actually a bunch of denoising AI algorithms. And so it goes, okay, and I'm going to try to denoise it. And it tries to remove the noise. And then you have like, well, I have my image before I applied the noise. How well did you do, computer? Did you get pretty good? Did you get it? Or did you kind of mess it up? And of course, with practice, the computer gets really good at pulling noise back out of an image and giving you an image that looks as close to identical as the original that you gave it.
So, sorry, what is it understanding about, like, if it's a bad black box? How does it know what to change in the next iteration? Is it just randomly trying
It's randomly,
things?
just literally randomly changes neurons inside the black box. Now, I'm way oversimplifying, but it is just randomly changing stuff. And it goes, did my random changes give me a better or worse result? And you're like, and so you measure, it's like, well, now that I look at your noise removal, you actually did a slightly better result. It's slightly better. So whatever you did there, keep that now as your baseline. Roll the dice again and give me 500 variations.
And that's what you mean about natural selection.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. And then it goes ahead and takes the best one again, and then just gives a bunch of variations, takes the best one again, and just keeps doing that until you end up with an algorithm that you didn't have to code. You just said, here's my problem, here's a solution, you figure out how to get from A to B. And the computer's doing that, which is great. So rather than having to go and like type the math to do noise removal, the AI is just making its own code, so to speak.
Wow.
But it also means that you can't actually see what's going on in that black box. It's like, it's just a mess of wires, right? It's like trying to figure out what's going on in our heads. Anyways, so you have this noise removal, right? So cool, it works on 10% noise. Take your noise and make it 20%. Now remove the noise. Okay, great. Take the noise, make it 30%. Now remove the noise. And so they kept doing this. And the AI is like getting better and better and better at removing the noise and giving you an image that matches the original. And then they went, all right, here's an image that's 100% noise. Remove it. And the computer's like, okay. And there is no image. There was no image to start out with. It's just noise. So when the computer denoises it, it invents a picture because it's guessing what was under all that noise, but it's just pure mathematical noise. So you just end up with a picture, and it's like, you know, it looks like a real picture, and you're like, wow, that's great. And so they took that and they combined that with clip, which we've talked about before, which is it takes text and it judges on a scale of like 0 to 1. So you can have like a 0.5 or 0.4 or 0.3785672, whatever. It judges how well does the text match the image. So they took this model, which can generate pictures from noise, and they took this other model, which can judge if a picture matches text, and they mushed the two together, and now you have something called stable diffusion. DALL-E 2 actually works very, very, very similarly. It's also a diffusion model, aka it does the whole start with noise and pull it out to an image. It's just a lot of what informs these projects is the models they have. So they trained stable diffusion on 5 billion labeled pictures. This is a data set. You can download it. It's free to download. You can go online. You can download this data set of 5 billion images, all with labels.
How many megabytes?
Billion images.
Billion.
How
with
many
a B.
terabytes would you need to hold all that?
50
terabytes.
TBs?
terabytes.
Yeah.
Terabytes.
Wow. Okay.
They're all formatted to 512 by 512. And they include basically there's a spreadsheet that includes like the image, includes the text that was accompanying the image, includes the URL where it came from.
Oh my gosh.
And that's it. It's just
5 billion URLs.
5 billion URLs.
That's
5 billion images with text. And you can download it.
And seeing how small a 512 by 512 image is, to think of 50 terabytes of it is just so overwhelming.
A billion is a lot. That's a big number.
We should do a video where we just scroll through the whole folder and it takes us like a year.
I want to know everything that's in my data set.
Yeah, I have 5 billion pictures here. Let's pick one.
Let's bring in an intern and have him go to every URL where the image was pulled before he can start work. He or she can start work on a project.
Man,
that can be our like haze prank for our interns. Like, hey, we misnumbered all these files. Could you go through?
There's one in particular we're looking for. Just go ahead and find that for us.
They're 75 years old by the time they actually get to finishing it.
Man.
So why 5 billion and not? I mean, as crazy as it sounds, why not more? Why?
Well, I think more is definitely a possibility. I think it's just a matter of building the data sets takes time because you have to verify it. You have to go through and be like, okay, I hope this looks good. And they actually just have a lot of AI tools for doing all the verification and judging if was the text a good fit, which is actually what they did for that data set is use clip to judge if the text was fitting appropriately for those images. So it's been like a scrubbed, analyzed data set and cleaned up. But, this all just takes time. So that's why it's not 10 billion. That's why it's not 20 billion.
Gotcha. But you would get better results if you had more, or is there not necessarily a direct correlation?
Garbage in, garbage out, right? So
fair. Okay.
If you can have 100 pictures and get good results theoretically, if it's good data that matches what you're trying to do. So in this case, they got 5 billion images, but what you kind of end up with, it's almost like Google image search, except if you had somebody vaguely have to remember the picture and then draw it for you. So, if you go into Google image search and you type a cat wearing a hat, you'll get real pictures of cats wearing hats. If you go into stability diffusion, you type a cat wearing hat photograph, it's going to basically think about its training. It's going to look at the model that it was trained on and be like, oh, what did cats look like again? What do hats look like again? Do I remember any cats wearing hats? Okay, I think it looks like this. It's just going to basically give you a blend of that knowledge as an image. Once again, I'm super oversimplifying. But in other words, it can't really invent things it's never seen before. It can only like mash up things. You might be able to say something that hasn't ever been imagined before. It's a mashup of things, and you'll get something. And you will see images that are striking and beautiful that you've never seen before. But you couldn't be like, the next famous Marvel superhero. And like it'll give you stuff that's kind of based on its knowledge of Marvel superheroes, but it won't just give you a cohesive, well thought out, brand new idea. Right? It's going to be a mashup. It's going to be a collage of all the other stuff it learns, which begs the question a little bit. Like, as we enter a future here where AI can generate all this stuff and everybody starts just using AI for this stuff, what are they going to train AIs on? Like, if no one's taking pictures anymore, if no one's making drawings, if no one's writing scripts, what are they going to use to train the AI to write scripts and to draw pictures?
Okay. I've thought about this, not this particular question, but the idea of AI as like, in a way, we're trying to recreate the human mind, but just that can work millions of times faster, which is our natural desire. It's like a weird thing to want to recreate our abilities inside a computer that can move faster. And technically, if that was our design, wouldn't that then have this inherent bias to want to create something faster? Yeah. That would then have the same, and it would like iteratively and exponentially get faster and faster and faster to where, when the thing finally pops up on our end, it's like, millions of years worth of research in a second.
The threat isn't the AI that we create. It's the AAI that the AI creates.
And the AAI is what I'm really worried about. If we can be real for a second. The last words of human civilization.
There's always the immediate desire to go to the fear-mongering side of this. But if you look at human history, we've already been doing this for thousands and our whole history.
Yeah, totally.
Like airplanes, perfect example. We looked up in the sky, we saw birds. We were like, how do those fly? And we said, well, let's just make something that kind of looks like it and maybe that'll work. And then after a bunch of different iterations of that, we figured it out. We do that with all kinds of things. A camera lens. We looked at the human eye and we said, oh, well, what is in the lens? What is in our eyes that allows us to capture light and different environments and see? and we invented all the different parts of a lens to represent that.
Yeah.
Now
A
it's the
similar
brain,
function.
the last frontier.
And now it's the brain. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. But yeah, I mean, kind of to go back, how fast these things are moving is what's blowing my mind. It's what I expected.
Way faster than I thought it would.
So fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reality is, logically, it's only going to get faster. It's not going to slow down or plateau
Until we're all dead.
until we're all gone.
Say,
Yeah, go back to the fear mongering. Put it on my
Hey, someone's got a
gravestone.
fear monger, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's my
It's a
my
great
place
time.
in this conversation.
Yeah.
So remember we were talking about things moving really fast and all of us being freaked out? I'll show you something. Not
Tell you
just yet. I'll wait for the right version part of the conversation. That's just me like it's gonna be like, oh god dang it.
I thought you were about to say something else just came out that's better than
Oh, yeah,
Stable
there's another
Diffusion.
one.
It's on its way.
Guys, oh, seriously, that's what you're going to say?
That's right. Let's do it right now.
Let's do it right now.
Here.
What is
Watch
it?
this video. All right, I'll just explain what's happening here. A tennis court. It's a man playing tennis.
Mm.
And then they type
Hold on.
in different words. A tennis court on a sandy beach. And now the ground is sand and everything is completely normal. Wait, no, it's on the moon. And now the man is running around on the moon.
What?
And it's
Hey, this is the question I asked this morning,
crazy.
Niko. I said, when is this going to be 3D?
Oh my
We're just skipping the. They actually have 3D coming too in a few months.
guys, I really like my job here. Please don't get rid of me.
Dude, it has a
That's
shadow
crazy.
and everything. Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah. So we're all going to be out of a job. Well, no,
That
I
is
take it back.
amazing.
So here's the
It's
thing.
fear mongering now.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm watching this Light and Magic documentary. It's about ILM. It's on Disney. It's awesome.
It's incredible.
It's like I feel like this documentary was made for me. It's all my heroes.
Yeah.
It's like clearly made by. I mean, it's made by Lawrence Kasdan and like Ron Howard and stuff. It's like these guys are. It's a labor of love, right? You can tell. I have a feeling like no one's actually watching this series on Disney Plus. Like I mean, compared to like Frozen. I'm sure Frozen. One day, Frozen now probably gets played more than the lifetime of how many
So true.
times this documentary will get played. But it's a super important piece of cinematic history. It inspired a bunch of these directors. So they just poured passion into this. And it's an amazing documentary. But it gets to the point where they're doing Jurassic Park. And it's talking about how the model shop is just, they are on the top of their game. Phil Tippett is like the world master of stop motion.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else is as good at this stuff. And then a couple of guys are like, yo, we should do these dinosaurs in the computer. And everybody's like, you know, like, no, seriously, we're going to do it. And so they spend 4 months behind closed doors and they come out and they have this one shot of a T-Rex walking down a field. And everybody's just like, oh my God, this is incredible. And everybody in the model shop is like, oh crap.
There goes our industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who was saying it, but like one of the managers at ILM was talking to people in the model shop. And they're like, how do you feel? And the guy's like, extinct. And he's like, yeah, you guys probably have about 2 years. And sure enough, like in about 2 years, most of the model shop was gone and everybody was doing CG. And a lot of people in the model shop trained to do CG,
Right.
and made the jump over, but not everybody did. But I feel like we are at that point right now for art and entertainment where, we had this era that was film and models and paintings. And then computers came out and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I can scan it into the computer. I can do everything. I can do nonlinear editing in the computer. I can do image manipulation in the computer. I can do 3D models, light simulation, physics simulations in the computer. And now I can generate all the pictures I want. But let's be real. It's a pain in the ass to do this. It sucks. It takes so long to generate images that you could otherwise, if you had the money, you could go out and just film it instantly in real life, right? The ideal of visual effects isn't to use Blender. The ideal of visual effects is just to type a few words and get your picture finished, right? I don't want to sit in Blender for 5 days making a building fall over. I would ideally just type a building falls over and then get a perfect rendered image of it. And then if I need to tweak something, I just tweak what I write, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, however I interface with it. Ideally, it's at literally the speed of my consciousness.
Yeah.
That is the ideal. And we are hitting a point right now where this whole world of like computer, like image manipulation and bitmaps and vectors and polygons, like it's not going to go away instantly or anything like that. But there's a new technology coming out that's kind of like poking its head around the same way that T-Rex is poking its head around the stop motion animation versus computer animation was happening back in Jurassic Park. And it's a little scary. It's a little crazy. I really don't think people understand how big this is and like just how much it's going to change everything. Not necessarily in the worst, and it's not going to change everything, but it's going to change a lot for a lot of very specific people.
Yeah.
So
And it's kind of how it spreads through the industry too. It's like
yeah.
the generating images is one thing, but I imagine in order to, for example, generate a photorealistic building collapse,
Mhm.
with smoke kick up and
And with
debris.
like directionable.
with direct, to actually be able to dial in a specific look. I don't even know how far away we'd be, whether it be like around the corner or miles away. But you were saying there was something around the corner that can make 3D models.
Yeah. So this diffusion model can be applied to other things than just pictures. You can generate other stuff with it.
Yeah.
Supposedly they're going to do 3D models very shortly here. But here's the thing. It's like, I've always found this idea of like, oh, the director gets to make the call and they want, we got to build our software here just so, in case the director doesn't like the way the brick falls, so we can change that. And I've always thought like, what a masturbatory, like, screw you, director. Who cares where the brick freaking falls? Like if you did an actual model and you blew it up, you get what you get. Like, F you, get out of here. Like, you are not making a better movie by being like, well, that dust cloud in the back, let's actually make it like 5 dust clouds that spike up different. Like, who cares? That doesn't have anything to do with anything. And I kind of feel like that's what's going to happen with AI a little bit here. It's like, oh, well, the director can't pick, they can't say that they actually want this car in the background to be blue instead of red. It's like, who gives a shit? I'm going to go ahead and just generate my cars on my cool like city street thing that I'm rendering. And yeah, if the car's not perfect, or if it's a Chevy in the background instead of a Ford, who cares? I'm going to go ahead and do my next scene while you guys sit there modeling in 3D for the next 5 months. It's like, and I'm going to get my next scene after that. I'm going to do my next scene after that, because the story matters. At the end of the day, the story always matters. No one gives a crap about anything else. They just want to see the story. You could literally.
What if the story's about a Chevy though, Niko?
Does that really matter?
That's a joke. I'm kidding.
Well,
I'm
no.
kidding.
If the story was written by AI, then naturally AI would be able to create the visual effects for it.
Well, Jake, you do bring up like that is the crux of it. Obviously, you do need a certain amount of being able to direct it, right? It's just the hyper detailed direction that you hear a lot of visual effects artists talk about.
Yeah.
I've always felt like that's taking things a little too far.
Well, that's the script.
Yeah.
You just need an AI that can deal with the biggest prompt of them all.
Yeah.
Which is a
It's
film
true.
script.
The film script. Yeah.
And
All it is a prompt. You read it right.
I write prompts.
Yeah, honestly,
Dude,
dude.
we're joking about this right now, but that's gonna be it.
Yeah.
We're gonna be able to do that.
Yeah, so in 2
At
weeks
some
we'll have
point.
another podcast. We'll tell you guys
honestly.
about the movie generators. Like seriously, the speed stuff is moving. Like literally next year this time, it's going to be a little wacky. It's gonna be crazy.
Oh, man.
But I'm not actually that worried about it, because the goal of all this is for people to better express themselves, right? That's really all it is.
Right.
The world is not a better place when you make it harder for somebody to like make cool art,
right.
right? It's better when somebody can just be like, I have a cool idea about a story about this wizard who rides the dragon, and the dragon is made out of Legos. It's like, well, that's going to be impossible to ever make a movie about that. But if I can just do it with AI and be done with it, because I'm just some guy that has an idea and I don't want to sit there and spend 10 years of my life learning how to do this in CG, like, heck yeah. Now suddenly everybody gets to make art. Everybody gets to tell stories.
Yeah.
The thing is, human beings are inherently we inherently make things harder for ourselves. Not that we do it out of any sort of desire for pain, but what we do, as old as time, we'll come up with a tool and then we'll go, oh, that works really well at doing that. And now because we have this tool, we can do these 3 other things. And now, but then we run into a problem with those 3 other things. And then we're like, okay, let's come up with these 3 more tools. And then we go, okay, now we can do 9 things. Now we can do 27 things. That's just what we do. So if we have these and you can prompt a movie script into a generating system and then have that come up with something on the other side, we'll just come up with another problem after that. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're always raising
so
the
true.
bar. Like,
Yeah.
I was arguing with somebody on Reddit. They were trying to be like, SpaceX hasn't done anything of value. It's like, guys, landing a rocket
Oh yeah.
is
Yeah,
it's a pretty
man.
big technical, not pretty big. Let's be not
Like,
having
yeah,
a rocket. No
yeah.
sarcasm
Point
here.
up.
That is an achievement of mankind, straight up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is an achievement of mankind. It's like walking on the moon. It's like launching the first satellite into space. Being able to land a rocket is an achievement of mankind.
Yep.
If you disagree with that, you're not in reality. Get out of your narrative.
You haven't heard Elon Musk did a Twitter and now he's bad.
But
He did the bad Twitter.
in like 5 years, people are gonna be like, so what? They landed a rocket. Why aren't they landing all of them?
Mm.
It's like we get so dialed in to like our current settings where it's like, yeah, so what? why can't your rocket land? All the rockets land.
Yeah.
Why can't your rocket also dance?
That
you know?
same person who was like, SpaceX hasn't done anything, was probably like shitting their pants when they first landed that rocket.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, yeah, it's totally groupthink.
I always think about like phones too. Like, some people sit around, not everybody, but some people sit around, they go like, I want the best phone, but it's so expensive. Why can't they lower the price? And it's like 5 years ago, the world's richest man couldn't even have the phone that you have.
Yeah.
Like
That's so true.
it just
Yeah.
didn't exist. And now you're like, oh, it's too slow. It's like your phone literally is the pinnacle of technology from like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Nothing
I can't
else.
3D scan any object I want into an image and then use it in a software
LiDAR.
program. This doesn't have LiDAR.
It's like, so our standards are always shifting. So
Yeah.
like AI is going to come out and we're all going to be able to generate cool images. Somebody's be like, yo, why isn't your image 8K? Why isn't your image moving? Why isn't, it's like, and that's just how people are. Like you said, we always make it harder for ourselves. We're striving for the next thing. It's not actually a bad thing to always be striving. It's always good to stop.
That's inherent to
Yeah.
our nature. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
we're curious creatures. And as soon as we figure something out, we want to apply it to the next problem or come up with the next creative implementation of it. That's how we are.
I remember I was using Runway ML just last week on a shot, and I had to click on 3 frames to get a good mat. Okay. And I was not a happy camper. And I caught myself. I was like, what? Dude, this has been taking me hours. What am I doing? Chill out, dude. What the heck?
Like a year ago, this is a by hand operation.
Yeah, man. It's so funny. Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah, man. It's crazy.
It's exciting, though. It's genuinely exciting. Once the models are, I'm going to say this literally every time. Well, once this comes, then I'm going to be really happy. But when the model thing come out, that's...
Midjourney has a new
incredible.
version of coming out, which is using Stable Diffusion under the hood. Also, it's on their own model using their own data set that they've been using for Midjourney. Plus, it has a new version of Clip. So it's going to be another step up. So, I just spent a bunch of time getting Stable Diffusion and running on our computers here locally at Corridor. It's really not that hard, surprisingly. And I'm like, I'm going to put all this time into it. I'm going to get it up and running. Then people in the studio can use this as a tool. It's going to be really great. We're going to be able to do so much with it. And I'm sure in 2 weeks, Midjourney is going to come out with an update that just like shames Stable Diffusion. And we're like, well, I guess let's all get on Midjourney again.
Yeah.
We're going to have to shell those $30 a month.
Yeah.
It's
funny, though. Yeah, there's different ways of looking at it where it's like, oh, man, now I got to learn this thing again instead of this whole new door just opened to possibility. Whereas like a generalist as myself, like I'm not an expert in any particular thing, but all these insane advancements have made it so that I can make like good quality stuff very quickly by myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's awesome. Like everything that comes out that's like the next iteration or faster or smoother, like I can sit here and go, I wasted all that time learning how to do it this way. Well, no, because I did that so in that moment I could enjoy making it. But now it's even easier for me. And it's just like, I think it's an approach, like a mental approach to these things that are coming out where it should be an exciting thing. And
I think this is a good thing for us. Like I think
it's a
this
great
is
thing.
a huge thing because what it's going to allow us to do is make narrative faster and to tell iterative stories faster.
Yeah. Because it's a tool. At the end of the day, that's all it is. It's just a tool.
Yeah.
Like it's not replacing anybody. It's just a tool. CG was just a tool. And the model makers could go train how to use the CG tools. And they can still, all the artistry, all the knowledge they have about the details, about how to build models, and you have to build in 3D still when you're doing it on a computer. It all transfers over. It's just a tool.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Like, why do we learn 3D animation? Why do we learn After Effects? Why do we learn Nuke? It's because we're just trying to make images. If you can do it better and quicker, it's not about using Nuke. It's about just getting your image quicker.
Using the tool for the job.
Yeah.
I remember I learned that after a long time of forcing it in one program.
Yeah.
And once you realize you use the tool for the job, things get so much easier.
Yep.
So much easier.
Yeah. But you don't want to learn things sometimes. You're like, I don't have to go out and relearn this. But it's really never quite as hard as you think it is.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to set aside like 2 weeks. And that's the thing is people never have the 2 weeks to do it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're all kind of, like with anything, when you get to a certain threshold of knowledge, the people who are creating it or the other programs that are similar aren't that much different from the other ones in terms of there's basic functions that are going to be applicable. There's basic stylistic techniques that are going to be applicable across all of them.
It's very true. Yeah, that's the way in Houdini because you're essentially moving data. It's the only program I've ever used that works like that. But once you understand how this software is interpreting data, you realize that every single program under the hood is doing that, but it's covering it from you to make it more user friendly. But when you understand what it's looking for, even when you don't have access to all the data directly, it's so much easier to find solutions. And yeah, it's like, you know, throwing paint at a canvas. Like every single software that you're doing, as long as it's in the same dome of visual effects, like there's going to be overlap between softwares, and eventually the whole canvas will be hopefully be painted if you know you do that in all the different softwares.
So I think it's just worth mentioning, like we've been talking about this AI, like Stable Diffusion. If you haven't seen it, if you have seen like Midjourney or DALL-E 2, it generates an image based on your prompt, but it's managing to do so in a very cohesive way. Where if you type an astronaut riding on a horse, you're not getting a horse with an astronaut head. You're not getting a horse and an astronaut separate from each other. You're getting a horse with an astronaut riding on that horse. And the astronaut has one head, he has two arms, 2 legs. The horse has 4 legs and 1 head and a tail. Like it's cohesive. That cohesiveness has been so hard to get in images up to this point. And the other thing they did, so DALL-E 2 always felt like stock footage because that's kind of what it was trained on. I mean, we don't know for sure. But one of the things they did do with Stable Diffusion is before they trained it, they rated the images on their artistic quality. So you have a program here that is smart enough to be like, this is really just the data that was given. Going, okay, these images are pretty, these images aren't. So when I generate an image, lean towards pretty. And pretty is arbitrary, but at the same time, it's not actually that arbitrary. You just have enough people rate it. And you're like, okay, well, these images are objectively pretty because everybody rated it that way. So if you're going to generate an image, try to lean over there. But yeah, we're down in a situation where you just get very coherent, good images. Not everyone's perfect, but you can spit out 100 of them and then find the one that looks right. So for those of you who haven't seen it, you know, basically just imagine being able to type in anything you want without too much detail. You can't get super, super specific. Keep it, you know, a little general. And then imagine seeing that image in a style that you've defined, whether it's black and white, you know, 35 millimeter film, or it's an Unreal Engine 5 screenshot, or a Miyazaki frame, right? From a Miyazaki movie. Yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff. So I have another question or another direction to go in here. I'm trying to remember what it was.
I mean, while you're thinking, I will say for those of you out there who haven't seen it, there's a video online of someone taking their UV from their photo scan and painting out the roof of the building because they didn't like it or didn't like capture it well. And they ran that through like this AI image generation to iterate different roof types. And then that spit out a UV map just with the hole filled in with a new roof type. And they were able to throw it on the model instantly. Like that use case is genius. And like there's so many use cases like that.
That reminds me. So that would be Photoshop up to this point, right?
Totally.
Up to this point, if you want to put a hole in the thing, you got to use Photoshop.
That content aware fill.
Yeah.
So why? I'm not ragging on Adobe here. It's not a crap on Adobe session. But
Strap
it's more
in,
as a
people.
legitimate question. Why didn't Adobe get here first? Why isn't Google here first? Why is there not a major company that has this tool? Like I'm generating art at my fingertips from words. Why is the number one media company, Adobe, you know, or media software company, why are they not the ones making this tool right now? How is a multi-billion-dollar company just not the one that's making this happen?
Why is that? Is there not money in it?
Too much of a risk. What
But
risk
I mean,
is
if you think
involved?
about Facebook or Meta, you know, spending
people
all that
use it.
money on the metaverse,
Yeah.
that's
How
a
much
huge
did they
risk.
lose? How much did they lose?
Oh,
How
man.
much
Yeah.
did Meta lose?
Like that's a humongous risk, but the reward of this seems inherent of like, oh, you can generate whatever image you want.
Yeah.
Why is that?
2.8 billion.
2.8 billion. When was that? Last year?
It's too
No,
large.
this is
and they
from
already
this is
have,
from this week.
Look, it's
Dang.
too
This
much.
week,
I think there's too much of a hierarchy involved in those bigger corporations, and it's really hard to push forward avant-garde new ideas into a mainstream program that's used all across the board. Like, yeah, why? What? It was
Like
sweet,
why is DALL-E 2's image
using
infill?
DALL-E, like for the stop it thing, it was like I literally highlighted the bop it and I said stop it, and it put perfectly stop it on the bop
with the
it.
right colors, the
The
right
right color.
perspective.
I highlighted the face and I was like, make the kids screaming, and it was like, bing, and now they're screaming. If
Yeah.
that could be in Photoshop.
Yeah,
That
why
could have
isn't
been
that
in
in
Photoshop
Photoshop?
years ago?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't necessarily know that it would be that hard of a process to just, because they add plugins all the time.
Yeah. It shouldn't be that hard of a process.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that hard of a process for a multi-billion-dollar company to do.
Yeah.
I have a theory.
Mm.
My theory, so a lot of this stuff is open source. Not every single thing is open source, but a lot of it is open source. In fact, generally speaking, DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, like even probably most of Midjourney, all the code is there for you to download and do your thing. The only thing that's not always there for you are the models. The part where somebody takes 4,000 GPUs and 5 billion images and then has the GPUs crunch on those images for the next, 2 months. That part, that file, they don't always share that file.
Yeah.
But you can make your own. You can gather GPUs and you can make your own models if you have the time for it. So in a way, like, it's almost impossible to close this. It's almost impossible to put a lid on that box and be like, nobody comes in except for the people I want. Because, yeah, sure, maybe you have a nice model that you trained, but all the code, all the knowledge that you built your algorithm on, everybody has that knowledge. Everybody has that algorithm. And a lot of stuff is open source where I don't know if you're necessarily allowed to package it up, but I have a feeling that you're not allowed to just grab a bunch of people's open source software and then throw it behind a monthly subscription like Adobe would,
But if you're providing the platform, we were talking about this with DALL-E 2.
Yeah.
Why they monetize and why Stable Diffusion doesn't.
So DALL-E 2 isn't monetizing you to use DALL-E 2. DALL-E 2 is monetizing you to use their website. The source code for DALL-E 2, you can go on GitHub and download it. You can put it on your own computer. They don't have the model available. They actually have another model that's like a little bit like trained on less parameters. So it's like not quite as good. You can download that one. But you can go and get the code and you can run it on your own system. It's just that when you use their website and you have their GPUs make an image for you, they're going to charge you like a penny a picture to cover their costs for, running all the electricity and the GPUs and all that kind of stuff, all that infrastructure. So that's what they're charging you for. But you are under no obligation to pay them when you use DALL-E 2 if you run it on your own hardware.
And that's why Stable Diffusion, you're running it on your own hardware. But how are you accessing the model?
So they just straight up went, you know what? Here's the model.
But you don't need to use any of their hardware to generate the images.
No,
it's
it's
on
on
your computer
system.
I will say this is there's some, maybe it's not perfectly analogous, but there's some analogy here to web browsers that it like Google Chrome. They don't own the search results that you're getting when you use Google Chrome, but they did create an efficient way to scour the internet. Sell your data.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sell those search results. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that seems analogous here. Like somebody could come along and package it in a more efficient way.
You could, but I don't think you'd be allowed. So I don't know what the license is for because there's so much open source stuff that's, it's standing on the shoulders of giants, right? You have Stable Diffusion, but below that is a stack of like 1,000 other projects that are incorporated into this project, right? You need somebody's code that they wrote for like image viewing. You need clip. You need to use somebody else's code for image manipulation. You need to use somebody else's code for, building your neural network. You need to use somebody else's code for your upresing GAN. It's like you're using other people's code to finally make your code happen. So I don't know how far you can get with then going, I'm going to package all up and it's mine and sell it, It's like, well, no, you can't do that because you're actually using that person's code and using that person's code and using that person's code and using that person's code, which...
Well, if it's open source, I mean, this is one of those weird areas of law.
Yeah, it's licenses, right? It's like weird open source licenses.
Well, if it's truly open source and it's like, hey, do whatever you want, then, if there's some kind of open source license inherently means it's not totally open
this is
source.
This is all open source license in the sense that like you can use it, but you can't sell it. You can use it, but you can't use it for harm. You can take my code, you can repurpose it however you want, but you're not allowed to just take my code, make it a .exe and sell it. It's like there's a lot of that in there.
Yeah.
Where it's like the knowledge is free, the code is free, do whatever you want, but you're not allowed to then just take my code and put like a fancy graphical interface on it and then sell it as a program. Like that's my code still. Like there is that stuff. That's a lot of that's in here. But looking back at Google and Facebook and Adobe, there's another thing, which is how big do you think like an engineering team is on Google or Adobe? It's like 10 people, 5 people, maybe 15 people. Like you have a group of people that are working on like 1 or 2 problems. In the open source world, you have thousands of people working on thousands of problems, and you can be the biggest company in the world, but your team of 15 data scientists are just not going to be able to keep up with literally the rest of the world on the internet doing things. Because you look at style diffusion, there's thousands of contributions from so many different people to get us to where we are. Not a thousand people made stable diffusion. I said style diffusion earlier. Stable diffusion was only made by a certain team, but all the rest of the things that it's standing on, like the stable diffusion team didn't make the data set. The stable diffusion team didn't make the GANs. The stable diffusion team didn't make all the neural network training plugins. They just made the one last little algorithm that sits in the very top of all that,
All right, you ready for the big question, the hard-hitting question of all this then, Niko?
Yeah.
If you can't package the software and sell it, what gives you the right to package the images generated and sell those?
I was actually going to ask you that question since you're a lawyer, because big thing that you see in all these prompts now is that people put artist names on them to get the style of that artist in them. So it's like, puffy blue clouds and a picturesque field in the style of Miyazaki. And boop, it gives you an image that looks like a Miyazaki image. So at what point does Miyazaki go like, hey, you clearly used my images with my name in your data set. Like there are copyrighted images in that data set. There have to be.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, no. How does that work? How far can you get with that? Like,
so like copywriting an image in that you can't use my image to draw and teach your AI.
Yeah. Or even just like, but at the same time, it's like,
I can put this in a data set.
I can learn to draw like Miyazaki and draw an image like Miyazaki and he can't say anything. He can go, stick it up.
It would come down to like the thing is the law is way behind on this.
Yeah.
But it will evolve to a point, and the tools that the law has currently would be to come to some sort of understanding of like basically this idea of substantially created, substantially influenced by, such that somebody would mistake it for the work of the artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point about the law being behind too, because I just don't know how they would catch up with how fast it's moving. Like you can barely stay up to date on what is possible.
Yeah.
Well, the
let
law
alone
always,
enacting
the law always
law.
runs behind human action.
But I feel like that's on a curve now. Like it's gonna be further and further behind. Total speculation, but
you're right.
yeah.
You're right.
Like
It's
at what
moving
point
very
are we
fast.
just lost? Are we just lawless? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, this is pretty lawless stuff right here that we're
Yeah.
talking
Already
about.
there.
like
Yeah.
hearing
It's very lawless.
hearing
Already stole
Congress-
Jake's voice.
like hearing Congress grill, tech giants and using the wrong terminology and like it just you realize,
Yeah.
oh no, we're in the Wild West here. Shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Which is
man.
maybe a
That's-
reminder of like, okay, I'm dipping my toe into politics and I'm just going to pull it right back out. So I apologize, but it's maybe a reminder that at the end of the day, it's like, we have to be masters of our own fate, regardless. You cannot wait for daddy government, daddy whatever, daddy boss, CEO. You cannot wait for any daddies
Yeah.
or
No.
mommies
More like
Or
grandpas.
mamas.
or more like grandpas or grandmas.
If we're talking
Yeah.
politics.
You can't wait for them to tell you if it's okay or wrong, or it's like you need to make that
No.
call. But you also need to be an
That's-
upstanding person who makes a good call.
Do it in good
Don't just
faith.
do a shitty thing because you.
Well,
can
this
do
is
it.
that's the inherent crux of the republic that we're in. It requires it. Jefferson, they all acknowledge this. It only works if people are moral to
Mhm.
one another. It doesn't work if people just do like you were saying. I'm going to do this, and who cares the consequences? Or I'm only going to do this when somebody tells me it's okay. Both of
Yeah.
those things.
I
have
will
their
do this
own-
until someone tells me it's not okay.
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, no, that's a good question. But like you gotta also have a certain level of sophistication to be able to get to the point that we're talking about as well, in order
Yeah.
to understand how to apply these tools in a manner that would garner viewership of them in the first place too. So it's not like every nefarious a-hole who wants to just do bad is going to spend time figuring this out, because it's work and you have to love it. And it
Yep.
requires constructive morality and discipline to get to that point.
Yep.
So-
Also, honestly, like if you can generate icky images in AI, you might be like, whoa. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. Let's say you're a pedophile and you want to generate child porn. Look, we're all thinking
just
it, okay?
gonna say it.
I'm
just gonna say
I
it.
danced around the issue last time. I'm just gonna say it. This is the thing that everybody thinks about: child porn, right?
Ugh.
Oh frick, my headphones turned off.
They're shutting you down. They're like, nope.
Don't use that soundbite out of context, please.
That's the
Okay,
feds.
but seriously, let's say you're a pedophile and you're like, oh my god, I can use this to generate child porn.
Ugh.
Let's say you do it,
It's going to happen.
and you're like, wow, there it is. And then you do it again. You're like, okay, there it is. And you're like, okay, that's it. Now what?
Mm.
You just did it. That's it. Like, I mean, that's where we
Now
are
you
with
get
Stable
thrown
Diffusion
in
right
jail. Now you get thrown in jail. That's what
But
happens
there-
next.
I can't imagine there
should
would-
you?
I just
Because-
can't-
yeah.
Well, because why? I'm actually curious.
Well, actually, because technically
Are
it's
we going there?
Yeah, well, I guess we're going there.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's child porn or anything else. Like, should you go to jail for just simply generating an image because it's technically a victimless crime, right? Can you go to jail
That's
for
where moral
drawing?
laws
But
come
is it-
in.
is it-
I don't know, man.
But isn't it a conglomeration of other images, though? In a
Yeah,
way, so it is
kinda.
kind of like thousands of victims kind of just smushed together.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But it's like
Jordan.
you can't send somebody to jail for drawing a picture, right?
Yeah, but I don't know.
In the
It's like-
context, though,
I mean, it's
there's lots of
disgusting.
victims.
Just real quick, it's
There's lots.
disgusting. It's
Yeah,
gross.
yeah.
Obviously, you shouldn't fucking do it.
Obviously.
But you can't send somebody to jail for drawing a picture.
but
And,
I
like,
guess to your
I
point
don't know,
there
but
too.
this is one of those things where then we need to make a decision as a society
Yeah.
and say, well, maybe we should make an exception for that.
I mean,
because
that is
we
a
all know
discussion
it's
worth
wrong.
having.
But in
I
in
mean-
the collection of images that it's sourcing inside of this black box,
Mhm.
I mean, there shouldn't be any child
shouldn't
nudity
be.
anyway. So
It shouldn't be.
what you're generating is just a small adult.
Which
bit of
theoretically
nudity,
is
really.
actually what would happen if
Yeah.
I have not tried to do this, but
It
won't
is
happen
such a
again.
weird. Ugh.
But the point I was making is like we talk about this big day where like what happens once you can do that. It's like, well, cool. What happens 3 days later after that's happened?
Mhm.
What happens once you can do it and then you can generate your 5,000 variations of it and you're like, okay, great. I have 5,000 AI images. It's like,
Mhm.
what happens a year after that? What happens 2 years after that?
Mm-hmm.
Because we just thought that was a big deal and we just blew through it. And now where are we? Right?
Yeah.
Like
right.
we're generating hundreds of cool concept art images here in our studio right now. And it's like, wow, I can do so much with this. And like in a few days, heck, in a few weeks or months, we'll be like, okay, so we have like thousands of these really cool images, and now it's not a big deal anymore. No one cares,
Mhm.
you know. And now we're moving on to the next thing. What do we do with this? Like,
yeah.
it's one of those weird things where it's like you feel like real life works in these like chapters, when in reality it's just a continuous flow,
Mhm.
and it flows past and just
Mhm.
keeps flowing.
Totally.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
There are consequences though to like anything that manifests itself, and if you're talking about the child porn thing, then
Yeah.
you know, even though you could say victimless crime or whatever you want to say about it, the thing is that it if you're putting those out there, then now they're out there, and
Yeah.
you don't know who's on the other side, and who's the next person who's going to see that, or the next person who's going to get an idea because of that, and
Get
all of those
inspired to
and,
bring it into the real world.
Mm.
right,
Yeah.
and all of the manifestations that can result from that. It's
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think this is where we talked about like the whole like law thing, like because the law doesn't lead, like you said, Jake, it reacts.
yeah,
Mhm.
right.
So we're quickly entering this new territory where we got to figure this shit out.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's not going to be the same old. You can't just apply like you can't really apply case law. You can kind of apply
kinda
case
feel
law
like
to
you
it, but at the same
can.
time, it's like
I feel like you can.
we're entering very new territory at the same time, and it's very much a wild.
Well, what we need to
west.
start doing is we need to start using AI to combat AI problems.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's really the only way to do this.
Feels like it.
And I don't
a whole court
know,
of AI.
I don't know who. Certainly, the government's not going to be the most competent party to like step in
No.
and go, "We'll come up with the competent AI tools."
Now, what's AI?
In like
but
20
you
years,
think
they're
about
going to be
some
like,
of
we
these-
finally
there's-
found how to regulate Dolly 1. Let's do it. Like,
yeah,
we
exactly.
finally did it.
But you got
Fucking Biden will
there,
be
there
like,
are
200
there are new
years old.
problems that are going to result, whether it's indecent imagery, other things like messing with economics, things like that.
Yeah.
The law side of it. There's all those potential issues. The only, in my opinion, I don't know any other way to solve it than to come up with other AI tools
Mhm.
that can identify and react to the misuse, abuse, and wrongdoing of people through the tool. I don't
Yeah.
know what else you do.
I mean, if we're basically entering a point in society where you can get raw generation of your ideas, and it doesn't take anybody else to generate it, we're going to enter a point where we have to start talking about what ideas are we cool with and what ideas are we not cool with, and how do you react accordingly outside just saying like, don't talk to me if I don't like your idea,
Mhm.
right?
We have that, right? I mean,
We kind
I
of
would
have
say
that,
we
but
have
it's like
that in terms of law, like a moral law code, right?
kind
A
of,
la child porn laws.
yeah,
you know?
kind of.
Yeah,
We
there's
all agree
obviously
that's
laws. There's
bad.
obviously laws against that. I mean, there's a lot of ways we do
Yeah.
that, though. So, for example, there's ways. First way people do it is if it's a product and people don't like it, people don't buy it.
Mhm.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
If sometimes we're able to use the legal system to come up with additional laws for things like that. Other times, we use mob justice,
Mhm.
all kinds of different ways. Cancel this, cancel that.
Mhm.
We are doing that, and that'll, I think, inherently take its course. Though there may be, but I think what you're getting at, Niko, correct me if I'm wrong. What you're getting at is the tools we currently have may be falling short.
I think it's more so that when you can do something like this, and it's such a paradigm shift in how you say generate imagery, and it's going to be more than imagery, right? It's not just
Yeah.
pictures soon. It's going to be 3D models. It's going to be movies. It's going to be videos. It's going to be audio. It's going to be books. It's going to be video games, like literally media, right? It's experiences. It's the simulations of our real life. It's like when you get to the point where you don't have to hire technicians and artists to build it, and it becomes a resource-free, instant, real-time, just make your dreams a reality at the snap of your fingers kind of thing. It's gonna make us go back to the drawing board a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot of bit. And like when I say the drawing board, I mean like the primal drawing board, the very base of everything. It's not a law on top of a stack of laws. It's like, okay, we gotta cut way back to the bottom now and like start over. Yeah, and I don't know. Like
the optimism that I have for humans always exists of like, we'll find a way out. Not to be doom and gloom, because that's not what I'm going for here, but it, with global warming, the way that it's going, that's one issue. But this feels like something that can get so far away from you that you're just gonna find out when you get there what the consequences are.
Yeah, nobody has any idea.
And we don't know how severe they are. We don't know how
Positive or
consequential. Yeah,
negative.
positive or negative. Like it's a wild ride. I mean, it's something.
It's
but-
definitely gonna be a hold on to
yeah.
your seats and
Yeah.
see where it goes. Because like, I know I'm bringing up some pretty like far out there subjects right now, and it's like it's really just for the thought experiment of it. It's like if you can generate any image you want. I mean, we're human beings. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like
Right. Anything that we currently do is going to happen through AI tools. No doubt about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's messed up, and
Yeah.
but also it's not all bad. It's not all good. It's just it's going to shift very fast. But I just remember like we were watching all these Ray Kurzweil videos back when we were writing Sync back in the day. He's talking about the singularity, and the singularity is the point at which change happens so rapidly that all of our predictions and planning and being able to rely on history break apart. Because the singularity is a reference to the black hole singularity where laws of physics break apart. It wasn't like, oh, once we hit the singularity, things will be different. It's no, once you hit the singularity, you can't make predictions anymore. Just like you can't make predictions in physics when you're in a singularity.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think we hit
that's
the
complete
singularity.
chaos.
You think we hit it?
I think we hit it. I think we hit it about 10 years ago.
We just didn't even. We're
Yeah.
just as
We had no
behind as the
idea,
lawmakers.
It started with social media, the social media was the beginning of the singularity.
Wow.
And it's just been, it started with the phones, really, it started with smartphones, and it's just been going faster and faster ever since.
There's a story about this. It's called the Tower of Babel.
Babel, I always thought it was Babel.
Oh yeah, also known as Babel.
Babel.
The artist formerly known as Babel.
Is this
Babel-
like the Babe Tower?
It's Babylon.
That'll do, humanity. That'll do.
It refers to Babylon.
Okay.
Babylon.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I
So-
guess I never connected those dots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Tower of Babel is in Babylon. Who'd have thought?
Babel,
Yes.
Babel.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. I mean, if you remember what happened after that, there was a lot of people died. That's what happened after
No,
that.
tell us. Actually,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Tell us the story.
Tell us the story. This is probably our good outro to the podcast. But tell us the actual story.
Well, I believe the flood came after that.
I thought the Tower of Babel. My understanding of the Tower of Babel mythology is that, they were trying to build a tower up to the heavens, and
Yeah.
God then made them all speak different languages so they couldn't understand each other. Hence, speaking or babble, as in you
Yes.
couldn't it's gibberish.
Right,
And
but does that have any
Babylon,
Here's the-
it was all
analogies?
Babylon.
You had me going.
no, seriously, as in this is the invention of this is the story, the Bible's origin story for languages. This is where languages came from.
Yeah.
God made everybody not be able to communicate with each other because they're building a tower that's too big.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. They're getting close, so he
and then I
scrambled
guess-
the language
I
seed.
guess because they couldn't understand each other, it fell over or something like that. I don't actually know what
Yes.
happened.
I
After
think they
that.
just couldn't keep
Yes.
building it.
Yeah.
They couldn't communicate with each other, so
Yeah.
they couldn't continue to build it. And that's, I mean, look at where we were. It was like we're going to build a perfect society. It's 19. I mean, this is going to put me out on a limb here. I'm just making an analogy, okay? This is
Right.
But if you look at the analogy, we're building a perfect society to heaven. We're building a stairway to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to get better and better and better. But where are we building away from? We're building away from the earth, our mother.
Totally.
This is all in the analogy. We build away from the thing that created us, the thing
That's
that
it.
makes us who we are and cares for us and keeps us. And we build away from it thinking that we're going to a better place. And then God comes along and is like, actually, no, you're wrong. And then we all fall down and then we start over again. That's the analogy. And I think a little bit of that, some of that analogy is applicable here. I'm just
I
going
think
to,
all of it is.
Yeah, legit.
No, I think the whole thing. It's just how fast are we going to collapse?
Well, that's
I'm like not trying to be pessimistic. It's like gonna happen. Like
No, I mean,
I'm not
honestly,
pessimistic, but it's gonna happen.
no, it's like it's actually. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just. I mean,
but
just
you
gotta
look at the
resign to
rise and
fact
fall
that-
of civilization throughout the course of
Totally.
human history. And this is a common
Exactly.
and cyclical way that we do it. You know,
Mhm.
The Roman Empire lasted what, like 1,000 years. So you
yeah,
think
and the
it
fall,
like
and the fall lasted another 500.
yeah, and like year 800. Imagine like our country's been around for like a couple hundred. We're like
Yeah, we're
We're like
dude,
250 in,
This
yeah.
is like
250,
this
yeah.
epoch's gonna last forever, man. Like we're just gonna keep going up and up until we're fucking all just floating in, just in one consciousness. No,
yeah.
no, dude.
Well, you see it in the stock market too, the crashes, right? The charts are just reflections of emotion
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And that shows the human, like how humans kind of work, right? Like
Yeah.
you got this wicked ride, everyone's riding high, and then just, oh man, we just drop off the cliff.
It's like nothing really changed from yesterday to today
Yeah.
outside of people's opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it's something I saw for the past however many years in politics, the massive divide that was created, and it starts to feel like on both sides it's now a different language, which is a parallel to Babel
Yeah.
or Babel or whatever you want to say.
Well, it's so easy.
Bad
to
boy.
live in-
You know? Yeah.
It's so easy to live in your own reality these days, in your own narrative.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
everybody just absorbs the world they want from the sources they want,
Which is driven by
on the made up world of the internet.
which is driven by the news that you get is driven by AI
Yeah.
algorithm. Like
Totally.
that's a great parallel,
So
Jake.
let's be
Nice
real.
job.
Let's be real. Remember, AI is just a tool. People are just doing it to themselves. Everybody just
Fair,
wants.
fair.
Everybody just wants what they want. They want the narratives they want, and then they're going to consume the stuff that.
Look,
can take
I'm
that
now going to
direction.
go out on a limb and say this. I was on Instagram, my feed popped up, and there's this really jacked dude, and I was like, "Dang, that dude's jacked." So I click on it. I'm like, "Oh shoot!" I go back to my feed for 3 days. It's only jacked dudes, and I'm like, "What is going on, man?"
Every time I watch a new YouTube channel, every time, it's like, yo, I watched one of those videos. Like, I don't want to see every video that person has ever done now
Yeah,
for the rest of my life.
So the algorithm is kind of to blame, a little bit.
Here, I'll take us out with a little story here from a book called Steel Beach. It's a great book, great sci-fi book. If you like sci-fi, you should read it. So in Steel Beach, mankind lives on the moon, specifically in the moon, in tunnels on the moon, because obviously the surface of the moon has no air. Something happened on Earth, and people don't go back there. We're all on the moon now. In society on the moon is run by the central computer, which is just a central moon computer. And the computer just has conversations with everybody. It's like Siri, right? But obviously like way more able to converse because it's the future. And when, for example, there's like a trial, the moon just has a conversation with every single person about what they think. And then it masses that all together and makes a decision. In other words, it's just like AI now. It gets a sampling from every single person. It listens to all the conversations amalgamates it all, and then puts out a result. So partway through this book, the moon kills half the people, or the computer kills half the people on the moon. And it just goes, and main character's trying to figure out why, but basically what it comes down to is if the computer is talking to everybody all the time, us as imperfect beings have corrupted the computer to a point where it has a existential crisis. And it goes like, yeah, this is debauchery. Nobody has purpose anymore. Nobody struggles. There's no reason for us to live. So bye. Boom. It just kills
Thanos
millions
snap,
of people.
baby.
Yep. So just an interesting thing to think about as we wrap up this podcast.
What a bookend.
Yeah.
How
It
do
might
we
not
instill
happen in your lifetime though, so hey, thumbs up.
How do
might
we
not.
instill grace inside of the AI?
Yes. And how do we instill grace inside of ourselves so that when the AI
Yes.
learns from us, which it's doing,
Yep.
it's also graceful.
That is
right?
True.
very well said.
Truth.
Very,
Yeah.
very truth. Very truth.
Okay, Jake, play us a cool
All right.
song.
Play us
All
a
right,
happy
let's go.
song, Jake?
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to
Give
pick
the
I
AI
think I'm
something
gonna- I
positive.
think I'm gonna play Stairway to Heaven right now.
But sing it in different languages. Christian slow fade to white.
Cut the Terminator battle scene clips slowly fading across the screen.
I mean, we could generate some, apocalyptic imagery and then
Oh,
just
yeah.
Cut
cross
to Obama giving Donald Trump a kiss on his forehead.
Yeah.
Oh,
generated by
that's
Stable
beautiful.
Diffusion.
Yeah, let's be positive. That's good. Babies holding hands,
Yeah.
praising the sun.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Beautiful.